see.
What about that?
People
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, so we're now going to be jumping on to agenda item 1 of today's cabinet. Joy, could you kindly advise on any formal absence notices that you've received?
Yes, Chair, I've received apologies for absence from Councillor Jane Lofthouse.
And may I also provide apologies for Councillor Charlene McLean? Okay.
Councillor Shaban Mohammed too.
Okay, and Councillor John Whitworth as well. So colleagues, noting the other agenda items that we're going to be discussing this evening, and can I draw your attention to the declarations of interest statement in the agenda pack? Could you kindly advise if anyone has any declarations of interest that they need to announce so that we can record formally? Right, I can see none, so there are no declarations of interests, even. Item 3, appointments to outside bodies. There are no appointments for outside body announcements to be made this afternoon. And now going on to, has that been noted? Okay, great. And now we're going to be going on to the Building a Fairer Newman corporate plan, which cuts across pages 9 to 132. So it's quite a chunky document. Colleagues, I'm going to be introducing this paper, and I wanted to firstly formally record my thanks to Councillor Luke Charters, who's Deputy Cabinet Member for Inclusive Economy, Strategic Housing Delivery, Climate Emergency and Performance Transformation here at the Council, working with me as Portfolio Lead. So, as you all know, May 2022 signalled the outcome of the election, and we've been given the privilege of serving for another 4 years, and alongside all of you, I stood on a manifesto titled Building a Fairer Newham, and it sets out some key things that we've achieved over the previous 4 years, but also the intentions of this two administration against the backdrop of the cost of living crisis facing us all. This paper, in essence, is the translation of the manifesto into the council's new corporate plan, which will direct and guide what it does over the coming 4 years and how we repurpose and determine considerations that will be commencing soon with regards to the council's budget. Building a Fairer Newham is very much about building on what we've achieved over the last 4 years, and it feels very apt that we're bringing this paper to this cabinet on this day in light of the celebration we had this morning following yesterday's announcement that we have moved out of inadequate with regards to our children's services, which very much reflected the organisation that we inherited at the time to good and outstanding leadership. Building a fairer Newham is about building on all the achievements of term one, but it remains an enduring commitment in tackling the structural inequalities and poverty that our communities face, as well as ensuring that the economy is an inclusive one where we are able to lift people out of poverty through the corporate strategic decisions that we make. And it's also about elevating still the importance that we place on the health, well-being and happiness of our residents as the principal primary marker of economic success that the council is pursuing and seeking for Newham as a borough in these most uncertain, complex and challenging times. Since 2020, we have faced a whole number of challenges, despite the efforts that we've made under this administration through the council and transforming the council into being fit for purpose for the 21st century and responsive to the needs of our communities. We've worked tirelessly with our residents, our communities during that 3-year period of the COVID-19 pandemic, which very much illuminated those stark inequalities and poverty and the deprivation that exists, exposed our residents to the most gravest of health risks. And we've also led a authority and a community that has had to navigate 12 years of austerity, and against the backdrop of the current cost of living crisis, it remains an emergency that our residents have been faced with across the past decade plus. We need to be helping our people and strengthening them and empowering them from all the things they need to access to live good lives. And the cost of living crisis that will no doubt frame the work that we do during the coming 4 years is something that will very much inform our approaches to delivering on the manifesto. And it's the reason why the manifesto itself has been shaped on the basis of fairness. For too long, our borough has suffered for decades from deeply rooted inequalities around income, housing and health. The effects of the current cost of living crisis are pushing people who are already struggling into extreme poverty. And in addition to that, expanding to more people that may have been not so vulnerable to the inefficacy of the economic model that has been pursued nationally. So our mission through the Building a Fairer Newham manifesto and now the corporate plan has never been more vital for our residents and our communities. And then the corporate plan that is being considered today, it translates the commitments of the manifesto into a set of tangible actions and measures that we will focus all our energy on over the coming years. And as with each portfolio lead, be that cabinet member, supported by a deputy cabinet member or a commissioner, and including myself, we will be held to account across this corporate plan, as will the organisation. We continue to want to be helping people to lead healthy lives. We will invest in prevention throughout people's lives, from helping children and young people thrive to helping older people age well. We will do everything we can to make our places clean and safe so people feel a sense of pride in their neighbourhoods. We will redouble our efforts as it comes to the housing crisis, albeit that is very hard because there are elements of the housing landscape in Newham reflects a housing crisis across the capital in this country, which is very difficult to tackle and manage. But we know that in Newham, the housing crisis is one that has persisted for at least 50 years. We'll continue to move and advance our inclusive economy approach so that sections of our community are provided opportunities, and we will renew our commitment and redouble our focus on the existential threat that the climate emergency presents, not just to us here in Newham, but also to humanity. So the corporate plan, Building a Fairer Newham, as set out in this cabinet paper, sets out all those key, important, vital, fundamental outcomes that we will be achieving over the totality of these 4 years. We will ensure that we do it with agility, with pace, within the framework of good governance, transparency, and within the budget envelope that we are working to. We've done so much over the last 4 years, and in the coming 4 years, so our residents will be looking at us to champion their interests and ensure that they are comforted by an administration and a council that they can lean into in hard times, as well as feel supported by throughout the coming 4 years. So I commend this report to Cabinet. Happy to take questions, but before I do, wanting to invite relevant council officers. Indeed, I will at this juncture invite Colin, our interim chief executive, to say a few words, and then I'll open up to some questions. Over to you, Colin.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. So I think as they outlined, this report and the corporate delivery plan is really the cornerstone of how the council is going to over the next 2 years. Part of the work we've been doing within the organisation outlines how we've been pivoting towards building a fairer Newham. But as the Mayor outlined, we start from a really strong foundation from the building a fairer Newham towards a better Newham recovery strategy, which precedes this corporate plan. Corporate priorities that we've been working across the organisation to put a real tangible set of outcomes together, and you'll see that as part of the appendices that you have in your pack. Not only do we have a detailed set of actions, but we also have the measures that go with it, as the Mayor described, which gives clear accountability lines, and the process that we will be following once this is agreed is that it will be tracked and monitored by Cabinet on a quarterly basis, as the previous corporate plan was as well. That leads into our good governance agenda and making sure that we're getting stuff done. So our Building a Fairer Newham corporate delivery plan is the foundation to which we're going forward. It's the blueprint for how things are going to be done, and it's how we'll be focusing all of our efforts as an organisation behind those priorities as we. I think I'll stop there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, any questions? Nope. Okay, great. I do, right, Sarah.
Question, it's a well, it's not a statement either, it's a comment, because I can't let the occasion pass that we are agreeing and building a Fairer Newham report on the day that we celebrated the really good achievement by children's services, to go from inadequate to good with outstanding leadership and management. I don't think can be underestimated the amount of work that has gone in. Emma is receiving, she has been the sort of key person who has held this together with her calmness and her absolute determination to be the very best. And when we build a Fairer Newham, we need to remember that actually the work that we do with children's social care is often with the most vulnerable, the most marginalised, children and young people in this borough. So we have levels of deprivation, but on top of the deprivation, we have children and young people who are really on the very edge of that. So I would like to say thank you to Emma and Tim and the team, and we look forward to playing our part in building a fairer room.
Thank you very much. And towards the end of the meeting, I'll invite other members of Cabinet to also convey their gratitude and thanks to the Children's Services team. And just to reassure, the building a fairer room will not be the preserve of one service area to the exclusion of everyone else. Everyone will have a responsibility in delivering a fairer room for everyone. Right, okay. I cannot see any more hands. I am going to suggest that we move on to the recommendations as set out in the report on big page number 12. So 2.1 to 2.4, and just drawing everyone's attention to the recommendation top lines 2.1 to agree the building a fairer room corporate plan as set out in appendices 1 and 2 of this report, or to this report, as the council's strategy to deliver Murphy-Arns and her administration's May 2022 manifesto, which will also frame and guide the council's strategic direction for the period 2022 to 2026. 2.2 to agree that the delivery and performance of building a fairer room corporate plan will be reported at Cabinet on a quarterly basis in line with the previous cycle of reporting on corporate performance over the 2020 to 2022 period, which was aligned to the administration's towards a better Newman recovery reorientation strategy developed following or as in response to COVID-19 pandemic. 2.3 to note the timetable for bringing forward the suite of enabling initiatives outlined in section 5, and then 2.4 to note that the resourcing and financing of the corporate plan will follow with the council's medium-term financial strategy, which will be developed over the coming months as part of the council's process in setting its building a fairer room budget plan within the context set out in the financial implications section of this report. Do we all agree?
Agreed.
That's a unanimous agreement of all members of Cabinet plus myself that are here today. Is that okay, Joy?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, now we're going to be moving on to the next agenda item. Just give me a moment. This is the agenda item 5, Treasury Management Annual Report 2021 to 2022. I'm going to invite Zulfikar Ali to say a few introductory remarks. I will be bringing in Conrad Hall, and then subject to any questions, I'm going to be moving straight to the recommendations. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. As we all know, the Treasury function is an integral part of the budget strategy, which supports the delivery of the administration's manifesto commitment and the Council's objectives. The Council is currently required to produce, receive and approve at least 3 main Treasury management reports for each of the financial year, and that will be incorporating a variety of policies, estimates and actuals. This report, as Chair said, combines the financial year 21-22 year end as well as the first quarter of the current financial year 2022-23. The report provides details of the outturn position for the Treasury activities and highlights compliance with the Council policies. And I also say, Chair, that this report also enables full transparency of the Treasury operation in line with the administration's agenda to improve internal control and governance. The level of compliance with the regulatory requirements, as shown in this report, is a testimony of the effectiveness of the excellent leadership, performance management, and organizational management procedures, systems, and control that we have put in place to ensure the Council meets its obligation. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our Corporate Director of Finance and Resources, Conrad Hall, his team, and all others who contribute in achieving this great success. And I have no doubt that efforts will continue in future. Once again, as you will see in the report, Chair, that the team had outperformed their own benchmarking, returned on the budgets and returned a budget surplus of 936,000. In total, since 2018-19, since this administration took over, the Treasury management function has returned a total budget surplus of £5.5 million. And with respect to the capital expenditure, the forecasts have recently been completed and budget reprofiled for 22-23, and this is reflected in the stable cash flow balance in the first quarter 22-23. I would now like to invite Conrad Hall in case you wish to add anything before I ask you to know the report. Conrad?
Thank you for that, Councillor Ali, and thank you, Mayor. Just to emphasise, the report confirms that we complied with all of the regulatory requirements, and also that all operations took place within the risk framework that you agreed as members. Also important to emphasise, of course, the report inevitably has a degree of technical content. It will be subject to thorough review also by the audit committee to provide that extra assurance over that part of it. Cameron Ward and Stephen Wilde are on Zoom to assist with any questions that members may have.
Thank you very much. I've got one question, but I don't need to have a response from the officer. Rather, I'd like to have a written response from you, Conrad. So I noted on big page number 133, the last sentence, where it says in total since 2005 and 6, Newman's Treasury management function has returned a total budget surplus of 43.5 million. Can I have a separation between the period pre-May 2018 so that I can understand the Treasury management function and its return on the budget surplus between two distinct periods of time, please?
Yes, sure.
And can we just make sure that going forward, there's a distinction made between the period pre-May 2018 and thereafter, because it clouds a proper assessment of performance. And I'd like for my comments noted in the minutes. And then when we get the written report, I'd like for that written report to be included in the minutes of Cabinet for this meeting, please.
Sure. Just so I'm clear, because I'm going on different page numbers.
Big page number 133.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get that separated, yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions, colleagues?
No, thank you, John.
Neil?
Thank you. Paragraph 34, page 134, big page 134.
Yeah.
As at the 31st of March, so at the end of the last financial year, council had a combined portfolio of 10.04 billion made up of etc. At Q1, quarter one ending, which is obviously the 30th of June, the same portfolio totaled, is that correct, 1.004?
Yeah.
Can you see, Stephen? Sorry.
I want to go through the chair.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Are you addressing me
So,
in terms of the question?
Yeah.
And then I'll draw in the appropriate officer, if that's okay. Yeah? What was the question you wanted clarified, Neil?
I wanted to clarify whether that was what the difference was, Chair.
Okay.
And I have another question.
All right. You have another one, did you say? Hey, Zulfika?
Well, Stephen, could you clarify the figures, please, in 3.4?
Do you want to go through the chair?
Sorry, Chair.
Right. So do you want me to ask the officer to clarify?
Yeah.
All right. So Officer Stephen Wild, could you kindly clarify?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. The 1.004 billion is made up of the £209 million investments and £795 million worth of debt. I think what we're trying to demonstrate there is that investments are being turned over more quickly over quarter one than it did during the rest of the year. And that is really a reflection of the interest rate curve that we have in front of us and what we're dealing with. And it's about the strategy, which is about keeping investment short to then plough into the capital strategy when the need arises.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Is that sufficient, yeah? Did you want to elaborate?
Ties up with the second point then. I thought that may be the case. So on paragraph 4.25, big page 136, Chair, there is a reference to the Treasury link advisor latest interest rates. Obviously, they're set at the medium benchmark figure, just to highlight the high degree of uncertainty. Is it, this is speculation, and I understand, that we may be in increasing higher interest rates if policies to control inflation prove ineffective. Is it when we come back that there's still an advantageous position with public sector borrowing, that local government borrowing board with that inflation target?
Okay.
It's about projection, speculation, I understand.
All right, I'm going to be bringing in Conrad because he signalled that he wanted to respond.
So in the short term, the effect of increased interest rates, inevitably, of course, Appendix 3 to this report, which was published sometime, is out of date as anything would be in the current climate. It can't take account of today's MPC issue, for example. In the very short term, increased interest rates lead to additional investment income for the council because the money that we put out short term in safe deposit accounts earns a little bit more interest. In the longer term, as the council undertakes borrowing to finance its capital programme, of course, we see the other side of that as the costs of that trend higher. I should emphasise that the sort of headline rates one sees on the news, the council accesses cheap borrowing through the Public Works Loan Board, usually on long-term finance. Those long-term rates are not necessarily as volatile as the short-term rates that one sees, for example, in today's news. But yes, there will be, over time, pressure on any new borrowing. Existing borrowings at fixed rates changes in use.
Okay, I'm noting that you may have.
Let's leave it at that. But I think the point is well made that public sector reports, it's still advantageous, but there's this plus and minus effect to interest rate driving.
Okay, and then I'm going to come to Zulfikar.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, clearly that is the reason for 3 reports in a financial year, so that we can take into account the uncertainties and any fluctuation in the market to make sure we give you a true representation at the next meeting. So there's 3 reports coming up. Thank you.
Okay, right. Are there any other questions? I can't see any hands up, so I'm going to just draw everyone's attention to big page 134 and its recommendation 2.1 for the reasons set out in the report and its appendices. Cabinet is asked to note this report, so it's just for noting. Do we all note? Right, that's a unanimous noting. Right, okay, and now we're going to be moving to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 6. And right, so colleagues, this is the adoption of Newman's statement of community involvement covering big page number 155 to 256. And I would encourage all members of Cabinet and the Executive to read it because it is a very important document and it will be circulated subject to approval tonight to all members of the Council. So in essence, this Cabinet paper is seeking approval to adopt Newman's new statement of community involvement so that we meet our statutory requirement in planning terms to have an up-to-date statement of community involvement as it pertains to the planning process and what is required by applicants and the council, specifically to ensure that residents are kept appraised of planning proposals, applications, and have an opportunity to give their views. And the document itself is a reflection of how far the council has come, not least because of the agenda of participatory democracy and involving our residents in everything that we do has very much shaped this new iteration of the statement of community involvement for Newham. And it, as sort of alluded to, enables, well, it essentially sets out how residents, businesses and community groups and other stakeholders can expect to be involved in planning determination process, but also allows for the views of our local residents and local businesses to have input meaningfully in how their neighbourhoods are being shaped. Now, as you all know, we've got a current local plan that was adopted by full council in December 2018, but we're undertaking a review of that. And that updated local plan will be coming to Cabinet and then full council in due course. And so the preparation of this document acknowledges that the local plan review process is underway. And just really wanted to emphasise that this document also covers how residents, local businesses, partners, stakeholders can be involved in reporting the breaches of planning applications once approved by planning committee as part of the local planning authorities planning control requirements in our neighbourhoods. So I'm going to pause there. Happy to take any questions, and unless Dave Hughes, you'd like to add anything as a corporate director.
With everything there, Mayor, we've got colleagues, Jane Custons to answer any questions as well.
Okay.
Service.
Super. Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes, Zulfikar.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shirley. This is a very comprehensive statement, which I'm sure will be welcomed by our residents. My only question is that you said the local plan review will be coming back to the cabinet. That review, any consultation as part of the review, would that be in accordance with this statement or the earlier?
Sorry, will the new proposed local plan, will it be in accordance with this? Yes, it will. It's all aligned, dovetails. Yeah. Right. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Right. Colleagues, can I just draw your attention to big page number 156 and the recommendations 2.1.1 to make the changes to the draft statement of community involvement as set out in paragraph 4.3 of this report, and 2.1.2 to adopt the Newman statement of community involvement September 2022 as appendix 1 of this report. Just also to advise colleagues, I am going to be asking the statement of community involvement report as set out in appendix 1 is properly designed in line with the council's new approach to design, and so it's a nice and as well as accessible document. None of the wording will change, just the look of the appendix, the public facing one. Yeah, I promise you. I wouldn't do that. Right, do we all agree?
Agree.
That's a unanimous agreement, right? Okay, thank you. Right, now we're going to be moving on to the Canning Town Estates Regeneration Programme. It's the master plan principles and accelerated delivery of Vincent Street, and this is big pages number 257 to 472. Now, this ordinarily would have been presented by Councillor Shaban Mohammed, and I would have made some contributions, but regretfully, he's provided his apologies for tonight's meeting. So I will be saying a few words because I'm very conscious that I have spoken quite a lot so far. But I will be inviting Darren Mackin, who's the Director of Community Wealth Building, to also contribute. But can I also advise that there are exempt appendices for this item. So should any member wish to discuss anything contained in the appendix, at that point, I will have to evoke the exclusion of the press and public and suspend streaming on YouTube. So as per a number of significant regeneration programmes that are underway, this paper sets out the council-led regeneration proposals for an area in Canning Town. As with all things that we've begun doing since 2018, we've been engaging in co-production, co-design frame the master plan for Canning Town alongside proposals for initial 147 new good quality, sustainable and genuinely affordable homes at social rent levels as part of phase 1 of the master plan delivery, which would be at Vincent Street. This paper essentially is seeking approval of the broad master plan principles, following which detailed work undertaken by skilled officers, but also this paper seeks to approve the procurement arrangements for Vincent Street and details of the right to buy receipts and how they will be used. So I'm going to pause there and invite either Dave or Darren. Dave, over to you.
That's so yes, the report, as the Mayor said, basically seeks approval for the master plan principles for the wider Canning Town state regeneration area, which is 1,750 total. But what we want to do is accelerate an early phase. We've got a cleared site at Vincent Street, which is ready for development. We have the opportunity to claim GLA funding to actually support that early phase, 171 units. But if we're not successful with that GLA funding, or for whatever reason that funding isn't sufficient, we want the opportunity to be able to use right to buy receipts, which we to actually. Basically, the Cabinet is asked to approve those master plan principles and the detailed acceleration of the Vincent Street site with either GLA funding or with right to buy receipts. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions, colleagues? Yeah.
A comment really, because I think like with Custom House, the work that has been done to co-produce Canning Town is also really welcomed, as is the consultation and keeping elected members for that particular part on board as well. So we've had many briefings about it, and I think certainly the Custom House councillors have actually welcomed that. So thank you.
Brilliant. Well done.
Through the chair, thank you.
All right, great. So, colleagues, if I can just draw your attention to the recommendations on big page number 259, and those are recommendations 2.1.1 all the way through to 2.1.6. Do we all agree?
Agreed.
We all agree. Thank you very much. Have you got that, Joy? Thank you. And now I am going to be inviting the Cabinet Member for Highways and Sustainable Transport, Councillor James Asser, to introduce the next agenda item 8, Royal Docks Corridor Funding Changes Approval, covering pages, big page number 473 to 500. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. If this seems familiar to people, it should be, because it has been before. We've signed it off. However, we've had to make some changes. The reduction in the amount of investment that the GLA are able to put into this. I think everyone is well aware of the funding difficulties faced by City Hall, and I've rehearsed with that. But as a result, we've obviously had to do a bit of reprofiling based on that. To make sure that the work continues, and I should reassure people it is already underway, but also make sure the investment going in continues to go around the Royal Docks corridor around Silvertown Way and the North Bridge Road. It's worth just reminding people that this is an important piece of work. It improves the public realm, increase planting and investment in the environment, with crossing, and changes what is a fast road design for the days when it was lots of lorries from docks. Sort of hugely population work is already underway around the new school, which is just open. This is quite an important change for the future investments coming in, and being a key corridor through London's own enterprise zone as well is a vital part of that. It's just a revised version of the paper that has already been passed to reflect that funding change. And through you, Chair, I've got the director on the line. I've got Paul Rex in the room.
Okay.
I think they just wish to add.
So I'm going to go to the director first. Jamie Cook. Would you like to say anything?
Yes, please, Mayor. Thank you. As Councillor Astor has said, this offers the opportunity to massively improve Royal Ox area. We're very mindful when we looked at the scheme in the context of the reduced funding that we didn't lose the outcomes that we were seeking, and that we construct the infrastructure in such a way that as additional funding becomes available in the future, we can easily add on to it. So we've got a nice flow through to increase sustainable transport and also to meet our ambitions to increase air quality as well.
Thank you very much. And Paul and Rex, would you like to add anything?
Thank you, Mayor. Paul Bennett, Head of Service for Engineering and Buildings. Just really to add to additionally what Jamie said and also Councillor Astor, we are coming back. It's a massive investment. It's a well-needed investment. It's been really supported by the locals out there. We've already taken public consultation and stakeholder consultation. There's a massive support for the growing demand for change that are required. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Rex.
Looking forward, yes, transport, cycling, walking, or it's an additional measures that we are introducing, which is very welcome by.
Thank you very much, and thank you both for your hard efforts and work on this. Are there any questions, colleagues?
I have a comment.
Okay, please.
I wanted to particularly, if I may, commend the mention and explanation of the benefits of active travel in the report, because the levels of investment that our roads and highways require is probably one of the biggest pots of capital funding that we commit to as a local authority or in a local authority in the country. And it's really crucial that as much of that as possible goes towards active travel. And it highlights on big page 490 actually exactly why it says that active travel is the only viable option for significantly increasing physical activity across London's whole population. And it looks in another study about how the infrastructure interventions of active travel have significant benefits. And from a public health perspective, we have a population that is, as Sarah mentioned previously, many levels of deprivation. One of them is reduced activity compared to London average. And not just the resident, but for the cyclist myself, I'm looking forward to cycling down the new Royal Docks corridor, because when I went to Royal Docks this morning, my experience post-Lowley crossing is never as fun as it's meant to be. And I know that it's going to get an awful lot better. And this is the sort of investment that isn't just for people who might live or work in the area, but actually opens up new parts of the borough for everyone in Newham and for our neighbours. And that has an impact on investment. It has an impact on communities visiting each other and working together and seeing each other. And of course, it has an impact on our borough's physical health. And of course, that impacts mental health also. So I think that you mentioned about active travel and the investment that we are committing to is worth commending and worth mentioning.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah. I've just got, I think it may be 2 questions. So firstly, I wanted to just concur, it's not a question, it's a comment, concur with what Councillor Joshua Garfield said. And I noted that the original £60 million that had been allocated through funding from the GLA is reduced down to 25, and this is £5.9 million from Newham's community infrastructure levy. And I think this is a really good demonstration of how we've repurposed and sharpened the framework around community infrastructure levy use since 2018. So it meets a whole series of objectives as it pertains to climate emergency, active travel, air quality. So I just commend, you know, this report in the context of that, and well done. And I just wanted, rather not for us because we've examined this paper and it's different kind of draft forms, but really for the benefit of the public, where you've had such a reduction in terms of the original funding that we were anticipating from the GLA, and you know, we're adding some just under £6 million to bring it up to a total of circa 30 million. it says in the report that the project, notwithstanding the reduction, will retain as much of the original objectives and design elements as possible. How is that possible? Because I think that's a justifiable question that members of the public will ask, despite us having had that conversation. And then the second thing, the second question that I wanted to ask is, given what else is emerging in the Royal Docks corridor, and I'm specifically thinking about the Silvertown London development and the significance and scale of that development with a new neighbourhood, how can you provide us assurance that the £30 million investment that will be going into this part of the Royal Docks corridor will not be of waste, because it complements what's going to be emerging further down the line? Yeah, of course.
So first, I suppose that working really closely with Silvertown Keys development is with regards to what we're living along their frontage, and that kind of relates to the second part, how we've actually managed to retain the objectives of the original scheme and reduce the cost is by working with developers and actually handing some of those parcels of land to developers for them to develop what we would want to see along that frontage rather than us delivering it, and then they come along and they add a building to it. So it's that combined working relationship we've had with the developers along the part that's helped us from both.
Brilliant. Would you like to add anything else?
Just come back one thing on Councillor Garfield's comments, because I think it's important. This is one of kind of three corridors, because the A13 already had cycle infrastructure. People know from the manifesto that we made a clip at Romford Road where we've got levelling up funding, and the Barking Road where we're seeking the investment at the moment to make sure we can do that. This is already in place and probably the most advanced. You'll have then the east-west corridors done when those are in place. We know there's pressure on north and south, but getting those cross-borough corridors in place helps you then to look at places in the and we are seeing some evidence that there is cycle commuting along that corridor as people use Canning Town, and we work that way down to North and use the kind of cross-river services there. So actually there was a wider benefit, as was mentioned, beyond just residents, and actually it's one of those, I think, build it and we will see the benefits of that. So it's one of those that we do locally, but on a wider kind of London basis benefit. And there is a lot of good feedback and people looking forward to how it can be expanded and built out once it's complete.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Just one final question, and then I'll come to Neil. In fact, Neil, why don't you go first, and then I'll.
No, okay. Thank you very much. We're in the realm of speculation. It's a bit like the previous contribution I made about inflation rates, but there's still, if I'm reading paragraphs 4.2 and I'm cross-referencing, that the team has devised a way to deliver a rationalised scheme because of the cut in the original budget, but there's still much more at 34.19 at today's prices. That's much more than the available budget. Then further down, both the teams at LBN and the RDT project teams are aware of potential funding. So am I the optimist with section 106 and section 278 funding? And the final thing is on that, I just welcome this while I'm speaking, over the page on big page 478, that there's been some initial discussions taking place with walking and cycling commissioners for London, so that he can raise the profile of the project to assist with the search for additional funding. I just wonder what stages we're at on the optimism versus my initial pessimism, bearing in mind inflation costs and the cost of materials, etc., that will be coming into that gap.
I'll take a little bit of that and pass to officers. So just on the engagement with City Hall kind of walking and cycling commissioners, we have a very good relationship with the cycling commissioner who's aware of lots of our projects and pays a lot of interest. We do regularly meet with TfL over these things. So they are aware of what we're doing, what our plans are and how they might be able to help. We kind of have that discussion. So there's a good working relationship. So that's very positive for us, particularly now they're based in the borough as well, but there was a kind of keenness to support us in what we're delivering on. Paul, I'll hand over to you on kind of realism versus optimism. You're aiming for optimism.
So, with regards to the previous paper that we submitted previously, it outlined section 106 contributions and 278 contributions that we had already built up. And that's the short gap between what we have in this paper and what we're needing to build the scheme.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You happy happy with that?
I just wanted to, on the back of a previous discussion that Councillor Garfield and I had, I think it's very important that we do stress that this does tie up with, you know, some of the additional funding, if we can, not only about healthy and sustainable transport modes, but also the whole area of, you know, air quality and mental health and all sorts of things. Because at the moment, people are looking to this area, as I say, we've been around this for quite some years now, and it's unfortunate with all that work that's gone in, and it does tie in with a really, in my opinion, the real problem is central government not recognising how much the TfL budget is out of kilter with the demands of an international capital and its various parts of infrastructure. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, okay, super. No, all right. We'll just go straight to the recommendations. I had one question, I can't remember, but not to worry. But can I just also commend, my question, I just wanted to ask, Paul. I mean, it's a relatively straightforward question. I just wanted to ask, you know, when you explained, and thank you very much for that explanation, how you have been able to pass over the additional £30 million cost to developers. Is that something quite novel that we've not quite done before in Newham or elsewhere?
Yes, Mayor, it's not something novel. We do work with developers all the time.
Yeah.
The funding, the shortcut isn't, should I rephrase that? It isn't 30 million. We have taken elements of the scheme out that we just couldn't afford to do, that we've agreed with GLA and ourselves. Some of that the GLA will look to try and go to TfL
Right.
for funding for. So it's not a full 30 million that we can go. But we have handed parcels of land and work with developers on some of those parcels of land.
All right, super.
It's worth saying on that you can see the evidence of that already, because that work has begun, because where the Silvertown Peace site is, they've started the work on removing what was a rather unpleasant raised walkway which went through a lot of bushes and trees. Wasn't very safe, to bring that down level with the rest, so it'll be much more open and accessible and easy to use rather than what was there before. So that work is already underway.
Super, well done everyone. Can we just formally note our thanks to officers and the cabinet lead on this really important paper? Thank you very much. Right, so I am going to ask everyone to look at the recommendations on big page number 475. So that's 2.1.1 all the way through to 2.1.3. Do we all agree?
Agree.
You all agree, Joy? Noted, yeah? Thank you very much. And now we're going to be going to the final agenda item, which is the capital bid for lighting and illuminated assets upgrade. Over to Councillor James Masser, and that's big page numbers 501 to 514.
Thank you, Mayor. So this paper brings forward a bid for funding for investment in street lighting and illuminated assets, which is the pithiest way we can find of saying anything that lights up in the street without listing it all in a kind of very long list. This touches on a number of things I think are important to the council and their policies. We started to work some time ago about upgrading the street lighting to LED, which is both more environmentally friendly because it's better for energy, but also better for us financially because it is lower cost and things last longer. That work needs to be completed, A, because we want to continue to improve our environmental footprint, but also it's in terms of public safety, which is something we talked about during the election in terms of making sure people feel safe on the street. Lighting is part of that, and that work needs to be finished. But there was also a wider point on this in terms of looking at the wider public realm, F1Rs and militia beacons, everything else that lights up. A lot of that stuff no longer needs to actually be lit up at night as reflective equipment, which therefore takes out half our electricity bill. It's worth pointing out that everyone will be aware there is a cost of living crisis that doesn't just affect residents. If you're thinking about businesses, it affects councils too. Our electricity bill is soaring, and so ways to reduce that is good for the council's budget as well as our environmental footprint too. So this work will be good for us in terms of the finances, but also in terms of that wider stuff around road access things. It's part of what we talked about. To make sure there are very clear street signs and things that we see and make sure it's in tip-top condition. It is worth saying that whilst this is a capital bid, we are aware there are other sources of funding that become available. We'll continue to look out for what those are and make use of them where we can. The department has been very good at finding sources of funding to pay for things and bring it in so we can then offset any money we're spending. So to reassure Cabinet, that's something that will be ongoing all the time, to look at where we can find grants, sources of funding and other investment to make sure we're balancing out that, so we're being as economic as possible with that. But this will lead to safer roads, safer streets and a greener and cheaper borough to run.
Okay.
I've got still got Jamie online and Paul in the room.
Amy Cook, would you like to add anything?
Yes, please, Mayor. I think it's a really, really good summary from Councillor Asser. And I think, as Councillor Asser said, energy inflation, as we know, is a real issue for us at the moment. And doing this will enable us to, control the costs as much as we can for those remaining units. I think as well, the point about the illuminated assets, so that'll be the statutory stop signs and that kind of thing. A lot of our stuff now is towards the end of its life, and it requires frequent maintenance because it is safety critical. So we're very much at the stage that those things that we do need to still illuminate very much need to be replaced.
Okay, thank you very much, Jamie. Paul, would you like to add anything?
Yes, can we just something really quickly, just to give you a heads up. We're looking to see an increase in what we pay for electricity from 34p to 44p in the next couple of weeks. So it's a 24% increase in what we pay for electricity for our street lighting. So this has a massive impact on how we can help them.
Okay, I've got a question in light of what Paul has said, and also Jamie, given the existing infrastructure is at end of life, to what degree will this enable us to future proof, and for what period of time, and how much of this can also integrate smarter city approaches, i.e. the use of tech?
Yeah, that's okay. So the retrofit for the LED 2000 street lamps, that also is combined with a smart technology system which we've already installed in 18,000 street lights in the board. That will allow us to control the lights as we see fit with smart technology from a mobile phone. So we need to dim the lights in front of us, there's work going on, we don't need there, or for whatever reason, that allows us to have complete control of the street lights. With regards to future proofing, the rest of the assets that we're proposing, they will have an extended life. Instead of something that we maintain every 5 years, it's something we look to maintain 10 to 12 years. So it gives that longevity.
Okay. Just a couple of quick follow-up questions, just in terms of being able to use smart technology to dim, switch off, switch on streetlights. How does that intersect with our corresponding priorities around safety on our streets, particularly for young people and women in the evening and winter months? Basically, women need to be safe 365 days a year at night time, especially because we want to reclaim our streets.
Well, I think the thing to say is that by doing it this way, you can look at roads individually, because one of the things we've had in the past with sort of set street lighting is everything is of the same level. So sometimes you get residential streets where you do get complaints that things aren't bright. So that gives you the potential to do some dimming, causing problems with residents. But equally, we can turn things up if there's a particular area where it needs extra illumination for those safety reasons. So it can work both ways. It gives you that kind of flexibility in the past. A street lamp was a street lamp. It was on or it was off. This gives you some flexibility to respond to need.
Okay. And I'm going to bring in Colleen.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this report in actual fact, just from a crime and community safety point of view. I think the need to have working streetlights and illuminated assets is really important for the wider piece. However, I guess one of my questions would be, how long will this take to roll out? How long will the process be in regards to upgrading all streetlights and specific areas around main highways, but also those little There's whereas, James, that you would know of, because there's quite a lot of missing, where it's not always as lit. There is lots of greenery, whether that be alleyways and so on and so forth. It goes back to the point that the Mayor made in regards to women's safety, safety of our young people. Children often talk, well, young people often talk about feeling safe at all times, especially in the to and fro of coming and going to school, especially in the winter months. What would this look like for them?
If I can just add something before I put officers in on timescale, I think you made an important point there about some of the things around kind of alleyways and darks and bushes. Because one of the things we've been able to do by bringing the green spaces team back in house is a better maintenance and maintenance regime that kind of looks at tree trimming of bushes, better maintenance, but not just being. It's quite important in terms of future the lighting is visible, but also some road is safer. So this sits alongside that work, which has been introduced by that team. Of general coming on time scale for getting this completed, because obviously a lot of the labs have been done. We need to finish that.
Okay. I'm gonna. Are you okay with that response? Oh, sorry. Jamie Cook.
Yeah, thank you. So we would be able to get our contractors on site within around 2.5 months to commence the programme. And then these particular units are on quite busy traffic routes. Therefore, there's a little bit more in terms of traffic management to get them in. But I would imagine we would be able to get completed within 8 to 10 months.
Thank you.
Okay, super. And then I've got Zulfikar.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you. Thanks to officers for their clarification on a number of points. My only comment with regard to the dimming or switching off of the lights in future, once we do have the central management system in place, is perhaps to bring back a report to the cabinet recommending some sort of draft policy highlighting the key issues, etc., based on a road safety track record, crimes and antisocial behavior, as well as the national research that has already been taking place in this area, so that we actually formulate a policy for future. And I think we've got enough time to do that, because the whole program won't be implemented for another 8-9 months, if that's feasible.
Okay. Any response, James?
I mean, I think that's something that we'll obviously want to look at, make sure it's in place so it's clear what's happening. So yes.
Well, let's see LED.
How this is done, because it may be in some places it's about engagement with residents as well.
Exactly.
Some of those residential streets where there may be issues that people want better lighting, or indeed actually less glare into bedrooms.
I think just some final comments from me. Similarly, I really welcome this report, because I think it will go a huge way towards lifting the look and feel of our neighbourhoods that are beginning to look very tired because of the lack of investment over the years, and because they're end of life. Just making sure that as this rolls out and take into account sort of, an update report progress wise in 8 months or so, just the interface between sort of placemaking approaches by the regeneration team and, the housing services, estates team, et cetera, and ensuring that there's a coherence in terms of what is procured around the style, aesthetic, so it aligns to our design guide for the borough, et cetera. So I think all of those those specific things need to just be included as part of the approach. Is that okay, James Ass and Jamie Cook?
Yes, I mean, I think, you made the point about different things in different places. We are aware that changes, but where investment has gone into kind of improve high streets, example, you don't want to be detracting from what investment's gone in. One of the things that occurred to me actually, in terms of council departments points, some of this stuff crosses over with other programs, for example, around investment through the Levelling Up Fund. So they'll be crossed over there. So talking cross department and cross council, make sure this all works. We're very alert to that.
Okay, thank you very much. So colleagues, I'm going to just draw everyone's attention to the recommendations on big page number 503. So do we agree recommendations 2.1.1, 2.1.2 and 2.1.3?
Agreed.
That's all agreed by us, Joy. Brilliant. Okay, so colleagues, we are now at the end of today's cabinet meeting. Can I say thank you for your consideration across those papers. Before we close, I wanted to just invite colleagues to express their thanks and appreciation to the entirety of the Children's Services team. And you know, as Councillor Ceres has said, our achievement in the Ofsted inspection regime following their visit in July and moving out of inadequate into overall and outstanding in leadership is an absolutely amazing position to be in, and everyone involved to be commended, including the cabinet lead for Children's Services, because I know that she's carried this with the utmost grace, despite the pressures over the last few years. But also to Tim Aldrich, who's not with us today. But Emma, I would like to invite you to say some words, perhaps reflecting on how the staff team felt this morning when we said thank you to them, and then open up to a collective thanks from all of us.
I think it was, thanks Mayor, it was a fantastic opportunity to say thank you to each and every one of them who in their own way and in their own roles have contributed to this outcome. They absolutely have kind of mobilised behind the plans and the need for improvement, and I think have a service that we have a service in Newham that we can be proud of, and work that we can be proud of. We're not complacent, there's still lots more for us to do, and we know the areas that we need to kind of continue to focus on, but really, yeah, very, very proud and feel very privileged to work in a borough with such skilled workers, and for a council that invests as it does in its children and young people.
Thank you very much. So I suggest we open up to a few comments before I close the meeting tonight. Councillor James Asser.
Yeah, I think this is incredibly important. I used to work in lifelong learning and adult skills. What we were doing is addressing things that were missed in childhood, and you know, it's never too late at any point. You know, things should go on throughout your life, but actually the opportunities you get as a child are vitally important. And in a borough and a place like Newman, where so many people need support, having good services to be able to do that, to give people the opportunities and the life chances to be able to fulfil their opportunities and ambitions is absolutely vital. Places like Newman are important than so many other places. And I think, you know, we shouldn't underestimate how important this will be to a whole raft of people, not just children, but their families too, in terms of the opportunities they get. This is really, really important for people. So much of my casework and others will be actually what support families need to be able to make sure they can get the best for their children. And just to say, I think as well, people often underestimate exactly how much hard work and time and energy and effort it takes to take something that is not in a good place and turn it around. I think everyone talks about it, but it is genuinely something that takes vast amounts of commitment to do. And to get that moving is an incredible achievement. To be able to jump 2 places is, I think, beyond expectations. It was one of those things that wouldn't it be nice, but that's never going to happen because the sheer amount of work needed will be almost insurmountable. The fact it's happened is an incredible testament to what the staff have done. I think too often council staff are at the receiving end of kind of when something goes wrong or someone's unhappy, and too frequently is it's when there's good news. And actually, this is an incredible testament to everyone, because it would have been from everybody playing their part to get this done. I really, really think we shouldn't underestimate the amount of work, but the impact that is going to have over the next few years for families and others.
Thank you very much. Joshua.
Thank you, Mayor. I used to work in children's services, and I've always thought that you can judge the quality of any local authority by the quality of their children's services, because we've talked quite a lot today. We talk all of the time, quite rightly, about being in a borough with people that need our support, need our advocacy. And you can judge any society by how well that society looks after the most vulnerable people. And children are among the most vulnerable people in any society just by virtue of the fact that they're children. Sometimes I think we do forget that, perhaps on a national or a regional level, but local authorities, as councillors, as corporate parents in Newham, the responsibility for each and every one of us, not just those here in Cabinet and not just the senior leadership team in the corporate management team, but every single councillor in Newham has a statutory responsibility to ensure that children in Newham are well looked after, are well cared for, and that children in care have as much opportunity and chance for success as any other child in any other family setting in the borough. And that's something that, for the first time officially, since at least I was elected first in 2018, we can now say that it's something that we are delivering and that we've been judged to be delivering it. I will end just by quoting my favourite extract from the report. Those at our meeting this morning will have already heard it, but for the benefit of those watching, the fact that we jumped from an inadequate rating 3 years ago to now delivering services that are considered good, and a first good rating in over 20 years in the borough. Huge, huge jump there in the past 3 years of senior leadership. But it said in the report, because the one area that we excelled from good and got an outstanding was leadership, both political and corporate leadership. And without that outstanding leadership, we would never have achieved the good rating that we have from Ofsted. And the report said, good corporate and political support has helped leaders create an environment where good social work can flourish. Confident and ambitious leaders have worked tirelessly to bring about significant changes that have transformed services for children and their families. So that report is specifically calling out the outstanding leadership of Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
Oh, I don't think it's just me.
And no, it's not just me. I was going to name you first.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Of Councillor Sarah Ruiz, of Tim Aldridge, the corporate director, of Emma, on every single leader, not just in the corporate team and in the DMT and children's services, but for every single social worker and every single person who works in children's services that acts as a leader with the young people that they mentor and tutor and care for and look after day in, day out, not just through their casework, but through their advocacy for young people in the London Borough of Newham. And that leadership is exactly what we are all across children's services are going to be gladfully striving to continue and to maintain and ensure that we carry on this journey of improvement. But we should, James is absolutely right, not underestimate the mammoth task that Sarah, Tim, Emma and everybody else has undertaken, and they were specifically praised for that leadership.
Montaz, then Zulfikar, and then Carleen, and then I'm going to conclude. Okay, if that's all right. Thank you.
Just like myself, I work and to be on this side of the table, to sit here and now be able to praise our staff, officers who have been worked tirelessly, cabinet lead Sarah Ruiz, who's been at it and been working so hard with the officers to get us where we are. Social work staff who will actually now come and work for Newham, because once upon a time it was like, my God, Newham, no, we don't want to go there. But it is the social work staff, the managers who finally got us where we are. So I want to thank the entire team. We are so proud of you. And as a borough, where we are, we can all be proud of our children's services. It's a service that I've been working all my life since I became a social worker. And I want to continue feeling proud and I guess do everything that we need to do to keep us at that rate of, good and better.
Thank you very much. Zulfikar?
Thank you, Chair. I echo every single word that has already been said in recognizing the efforts that cabinet lead as well as the leadership in education and children's services made. They say everything is possible. Nothing is impossible. And you have demonstrated through your efforts, despite difficult time. We had 2 years of COVID. And if you recognize that, if you look at the amount of effort people have put in, I think it was sheer determination on part of people that led to this achievement. You know, you heard 20 years, we never had such a great recognition. And to move from where we were and where we are today, it is unimaginable to some extent. But I think it's the recognition of determination, the motivation, the culture that we've created in that department to ensure that people were absolutely determined and keen to get it over and done with and actually turn it around, that they've managed it and managed it so well that this is now going to be a lead, I think, for others to follow from Newman's perspective. And certainly the organizational arrangements we put in place, the culture we created, the lessons we learned, they are great testimony for us to ensure that there are transferable skills which can be applied in other part of the organization, particularly with regard to the fair and Newman and building the next block. Yeah, so everything has been a great achievement. Well done to Sarah, Emma, Tim, and the rest of the colleagues in the whole department. But I think the challenge for us now is to make sure that we sustain it. And I'm sure we will do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then I'm going to go to Colleen.
Thank you, Chair. Reflecting all on what we've heard over the last 2 days in regards to the Ofsted inspection results, I guess one of the things that I want to say, which I haven't said already, but I think I need to say here in this space, is thank you, Rox. Because in actual fact, had you not appointed Sarah into this position to help with the whole idea of where we stepped into back in 2019, and I remember the tears that we cried when we had that Ofsted conversation, we wouldn't be where we are today. And I think it's testament to the leadership of this council going forward as to what our real intentions are for the residents that are here, that are in the place that we live and we call home. So I actually think that, you know, there is no words, Emma, and I'd hope you pass this back. There is no words that I could ever express that will be able to really tell my gratitude of what it is that everyone has done in order to achieve this result. It has been over 20 years. And 20 years is a long time in a completely different regime, in a completely different Ofsted regime. But I think it's really important just to acknowledge that every single child in this borough, from the moment they're conceived until they turn 25 and beyond, will be receiving the level of support that they deserve. Those families will receive the level of support that they deserve when they need it, at the times that they need it. And I think that we can be confident that in actual fact, we are doing what's right. And the pledges that we made in the previous administration around towards against Newman, that making this the best place for a child and young person to grow up, because they will be the next generation. They will be our next leaders. And hopefully they will watch in years to come the hard work of those people that really do care for them and go forward with that. So thank you.
It's really powerful. Before I invite Sarah to say final words, let's not forget, I mean, it's pretty mind-blowing that for the first time in 20 years, we've actually got to good, let alone outstanding in leadership. 20 years. And all of this is about the right people, the right culture, the political direction, and the fact that we are willing to make political decisions around where money goes. And we have put in an increase of 50%, reflecting £47 million in the last 4 years. And you're right, Zulfikar, we build and we grow on this and we reach excellence because that's what our young people deserve. And we will see the outcome of our investment from 3 years ago manifest in the beauty and the brilliance of our children who will be leaders here in Newham in the future. The fact that any one of our kids can access the Duke of Edinburgh Awards. Any one of our kids knows that they've got an organisation that they can lean into to feel safe, and that any one of our kids can step into an enabling and empowering youth zone. And that's something that everyone should be really, really proud of. Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, and I think that this has certainly been a whole one council approach. It hasn't always felt like that, but I do genuinely believe that we have made huge strides in cross-departmental working. I mean, Emma will know that, 2 to 3 years ago, we didn't have a dialogue with housing. It was quite confrontational. And because of her work, and I have to say it's her work, we have a valued relationship. And I think that goes across actually every department. And I think that there were people there at our event this morning from every department. We also have to thank Conrad and his team, because he hasn't made it easy for us to get our money. But I don't think he should. I don't think, I mean, I can remember my very first scrutiny when I became lead member, and quite rightly, they could have driven a coaching horses through our responses, because to be perfectly honest, when Tim started, we didn't know what our budget was. We didn't know how it was being spent. And so you and your team, not that you were there then, but, but subsequently, we haven't ever had any money that you don't think that we need. And I think that's really a lesson that actually goes across the council, is that everybody might think, oh my God, that Conrad is being so difficult. But we should have to justify every single penny in additional money that we get, because it's public money. And the other thing I'd like to say, so for some it was quite emotional this morning, because there were quite a few people who were there in 2019 who, I was going to swear, but I can't, who actually recognised what a really bad place we were in then, but were powerless to do anything about it, because, they just had to suck it up. And somebody said to me this morning, you only know and value what you have now because you saw how bad it was in 2019, and the pleasure and the privilege of actually being part of the team now. And so, it has been, I was going to say a Herculean effort, H with capital H, of course.
Please do not remind me.
It has been, but actually standing on that boat today, it made me feel really proud. It's the hours that have been put in, and God only knows the staff have put in treble the amount of hours, but actually the rewards have paid off, and it hasn't been easy. But every single step of the way, we have had support from various people. So, our good, and it's actually up 3 places for leadership and management, from inadequate to outstanding, just say that again. So it is about a one council. So it may be our award, and it is our award, but actually the benefits that will have to the council cannot be underestimated. So I know Emma will, I expect Tim's watching, because that's the sort of man he is, isn't it? It's Tim. But Emma, you will take back our thanks, because it is heartfelt.
Yeah.
from the cabinet, and we would have had this at full council, we probably still will, but, you know, it is a public recognition
Yeah.
from the council to our children's services, so thank you.
Well done. And on that beautiful and uplifting note, I wish you all a lovely and joyous evening, and let's go and continue on our journey of excellence for the residents